Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Simple Podcast. My name is Luke. You probably don't know me as Luke, not Lucas. I'm joined today by my friend Ford.
Hi, I'm here as well. You don't know me by 40 Boy.
And I'm also joined by
to Jayden or Trinity.
I'm also joined by my friend Jayden.
Hi, I do art, and yeah, that's about it.
And also joined by Trinity.
Hi, I was dragged here against my will.
Yep, and today we have special guest LowSpecGamer / Alex.
Howdy.
So, what do you do, Alex?
Kind of a big question. I have a YouTube channel where I basically find ways of dropping the graphics of modern-ish games to the lowest possible, definitely under what the game usually allows, with the objective of trying to make them run on PCs that are under the minimum requirements of said game. And I do some other experiments along that line, like for example, I recently did a video about the gaming on calculators, and I am currently working on a video about gaming in VR using a budget PC. So that is sort of my line of specialty.
Ooh. Yeah, I remember I discovered your YouTube channel a couple years ago because, actually a few years ago, because I had like a really crappy pre-built like Dell computer that my dad gave me for free. And I couldn't run anything, so I was like, hey, I'm gonna look up how to make games run on really low spec games or computers, and then boom, your channel showed up, and I've been watching ever since.
Thank you. That actually confirms part of my strategy. A very high number of people that do YouTube professionally get most of their views from like the algorithm or from recommended or from the home screen. I think most of the creators that I know, usually less than 3% of their views are from search. Mine are like closer to 30 because I'm counting on making videos on topics that people are Googling anyway, just looking for like a simple tutorial or something. And then encountering one of my videos and being like, hey, this is actually interesting. I may want to watch more of this. So it's good to know, to have anecdotal evidence that strategy is working.
Yeah, and like even on games that I don't own, I still find it really interesting seeing the graphics drop so low,
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for me it was just I honestly, but like I also like found you like probably 2 years ago, and I watched one and I was like, wow, this is actually really interesting, and so I started watching multiple with the I remember specifically GTA. I think you played it on this wasn't very long ago, but didn't you play that on the GDP win?
I don't think GTA 5 I have. GTA 4 I might have, and the mobile version I played on the GPD XD. So I will have to check, but probably. If this was several years ago, it might have been the original GTA 5 video that I did, which exploded.
I believe that's
like
it. Yeah,
5 months after I released it for absolutely no reason. So a lot of people have discovered the channel through that.
Okay, so what would you say is the most interesting part of making your videos?
Interesting for me or interesting for the viewer?
Both?
Well, I guess for me is whatever involves researching something that I will have not done anyway. Like I'm probably going to start doing more videos like the experimentation that I mentioned with gaming on calculators, or the virtual reality, the low spec virtual reality video, because those are just super interesting to do, in the sense that like I had to spend like $150 on a headset and €150 on a graphics card that I needed for the test, and that's usually stuff that I can't justify for personal use. But when I'm like, oh, this is a business expense. Sorry. When this is like I'm spending money because I'm making a video about this, so that gives me an excuse to do these very weird experiments that I will not have done in my personal time, like trying to play a VR game on a GT 1030 or some other cheap GPU. That's definitely one of the most interesting parts for me, that sort of experimentation. For the viewer, I don't know, because I have this debate with people often, and I look a lot of the retention graphs of my videos, trying to figure out what people are most interested in. And for the regular videos that I do, the game specific videos, it is definitely the how low it can go, how it changes. Like if you see a lot of my modern videos, I have put a lot of effort into transitions to make it more obvious how the graphics change, because I have noticed that people care more about that. For the experimental videos, I don't know. I would say probably the premise. Like if I made a video called "Can you game on a calculator?" Like the whole premise of it, the whole question of it is already interesting, or at least in my opinion. Otherwise, I would not have done it.
Yeah.
I have because in order to what?
No, go ahead.
All right. In order to do all these videos in the first place, you have to, of course, have the prior knowledge of where to find these, how to make them go as far down as you can. So how did you originally find out how to make these go down as far as possible, graphic-wise?
Well, I mean, a lot of it just takes a lot of research, experimentation, and trial and error. When I originally started my channel, the idea, I already had some basic knowledge of stuff that I have used just in my personal time before. But my original idea of the channel was more of collecting info that was out there. But I like to believe that I'm a quick learner. I don't know if that's true, but I like to believe it. And therefore I was trying to do my best to, like, I started observing patterns and things that games do commonly that you can sort of abuse for this sort of thing. But something that I definitely want to make clear is that I often do not have previous knowledge of how to do something for a specific game before I start working on it, which is why a lot of people get bothered with me when a new game releases and the next day, people in YouTube are used to content happening immediately, so they're like, where's the video? The game released yesterday. I remember specifically when Fallout 4 released, that my Twitter notification feed was just people going like, where's the Fallout 4 video? Where's the Fallout 4 video? On like the week that it released. And it takes me weeks, sometimes it can take me months, and sometimes I don't even find a way to do something with a specific game. So it's not like I know beforehand. Definitely after doing this for years, if the engine a game is using is something that I have tackled before, there's a ton of stuff that I can recycle. A good example of this will be I recently did a video on Far Cry 4 and Far Cry 5. I have ignored Far Cry videos, Far Cry games in general for my channel for a long time because they use their own sort of weird engine that I had no idea what to do. But someone wrote to me being like, hey, they're modding tools, people are using those tools to dig into the game, maybe you can find something through it. And I honestly didn't have time for it, so I made a comment that I had the intent to do so on my Discord. And several people from my community in the Discord started doing this themselves. And like a week later, one of them writes to me and it's like, hey, I have been experimenting for a week and I discovered all these things that you can actually copy into the main configuration file. There are engines from the variables from the engine that the game actually reads. And that was like an oh my god moment, because then I started to try it and like they all work on Far Cry 3, Far Cry Primal, Far Cry 4 and Far Cry 5. So that just opened the gates for a huge amount, because we now understood, quote unquote, how the game reads the variables, how the engine reads the variables. So that means technically a lot of stuff that we could recycle between games that run on the same engine. So it's a lot like that. Definitely something that I want to make emphasis is that I do not know these things beforehand. I will say 50% of the emails and messages that I get daily are people being like, hey, can you help me run this very specific game that you have never heard about? And I'm like, no, because I have never heard about it. And they usually answer with something like, oh, can I send you the configuration file and you can tell me what to change? And I'm like, that's not how this works.
Yeah,
like, it usually takes a lot of experimentation on my side to figure anything out.
Yeah, either experiment with it yourself, or there's probably subreddits or, websites that you can go to and find ways to lower the graphics down.
It surprisingly depends a lot on the community. Like there are a lot of games that have big communities that are very technical, so you can find a lot of material. And then there are games like Far Cry that the community is not interested in that, so there's no resources. Like the stuff that I have been doing in my recent Far Cry videos, I have not seen that online anywhere else. That's what I was so surprised when we discovered that. And there's tons of games where you search and just there's no interest for that. And then there are games like Skyrim or maybe Fortnite or stuff like that, when you have pages and pages of material of people trying stuff. It depends on the community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you've been doing a few videos on portable gaming recently. Are there any like specific challenges that you've had looking at the portable gaming systems, or is it basically the same thing as any other Windows computer?
Well, it's a little bit more challenging in the sense that they usually don't use their resources fully because of temperature issues. The GPT-Win2 in particular, like every time I do a video on any GPT portable system, people are in the comments pointing out like, oh, you're doing something wrong because, you're not using your GPU to 100%. You can see the number there. And I'm like, yes, it's heat. Like they, in the BIOS, they limit the temperature of their devices because it's one thing when the laptop that you're using is getting hot, but you're like on a table or something, that when you're holding something in your hands and it's getting hot. A lot of people have asked me to do videos on, for example, modifying those parameters in the BIOS, so unlocking them so the device can get as hot as it wants. But I don't think that's practical. I think I prefer to work within the confines of the limit because I don't think there's value in playing in a device that is like super hot and burning your hands.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
like-
is true.
Because like that's the point. It's like trying to go as low as possible, like within the parameters you're given.
Exactly.
I guess that's kind of the good thing with the Switch is that the part that you're holding isn't the like actual console, it's the controllers, I guess.
Yeah, every time I play with a Switch, I think about this because you're always seeing these things everywhere. Like I think that was intentional. Like they made a really good effort in designing a system that doesn't put the heating or doesn't pipe the heating in a part that you're holding. So it's like there's like 2 layers of separation. You're not going to feel it.
Yeah, and even if you have the bottom like brim on your lap, it still has the fans and the like sort of cooling elements facing towards the back of the device instead of going out the bottom.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
Smart.
So basically, the key to understanding technology stuff is to play around.
Yes.
Okay.
Making
the main thing about
educated guesses, I think I will call it.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is why, because I don't know a whole lot about technology, and I hang out with a bunch of people who do. And I feel like the reason I don't is because I don't play with things because I'm scared that I'm gonna like break my computer, and I like my computer.
That is a completely valid fear. Like I have, my life got significantly better when I had enough money to buy PCs that I exclusively used for the channel, so I didn't have to experiment on whatever was my personal PC. Because if I broke something, I could like erase everything and reinstall Windows or something if I didn't care. But the amount of times I have broken things and then have a hard time reverting to how originally they were is I will have lost count. It's a very valid fear in this thing.
I see. Yeah.
On the
I was gonna say whenever I have issues with computers, I generally go to like Ford or Luke.
Hi. For me and Luke, we're not super educated in the subject, but like we have pretty basic understanding of what makes computers tick. Basically nothing software wise, but like hardware.
Me on the other hand, I don't really know anything about this. I got into it like 2 years ago because of Luke. Because I used to play Xbox and PlayStation and stuff like that, and then I had an actual computer that was not bad, so he converted me.
Yeah, I tried.
I mean,
I tried to learn about computers once because my dad, he knows a lot about it because he was an IT person and He's a nerd. And they made fun of me because I wanted to start at the beginning of computers. So I told them I learned what a floppy disk was.
Yeah, it's going a little bit too much.
That's what I keep getting her for that, and like we'll talk about something, and she'll be like, I don't know what that is, and then I'll be like, it's okay, you know what a floppy disk is.
Yeah. No, I
Okay, Luke's back.
yeah, I got back. No, I started building computers. Well, I think the first thing I ever did to my computer was I installed a new graphics card, and I was like really, really nervous about opening up my pre-built Dell computer and sticking a graphics card in it. And now, whenever anything's broken, I just rip off my side panel and like mess around with my computer, because I've gotten so used to being inside of a computer that I don't even care anymore.
Yeah, I think you probably one of the things that is annoying about the PC gaming community in general is how many people tend to have this feeling of superiority, in the sense that, oh, you know, consoles are always inferior, this is the best platform. And the way that I usually explain it, that I think it's better, is that the PC platform requires more commitment, it requires more experimentation, more time that you put to learn stuff. But if you do, like, it's definitely way more powerful in terms of the things that you can do. But that doesn't mean that it's the only way. Like, if you are a person that doesn't want to go through that process, then a console, the point of a console is convenience, which is why I cringe every time I see a PlayStation game that requires an install. But in that sense, the hardest entry barrier for PC gaming is that knowledge that you need. In one way, that has made the community stronger, because as you guys have pointed out, like, you usually need to ask someone else, or even to go online to ask, like, hey, what does this port mean? How do I install a GPU? All that stuff, because the makers of the hardware themselves make a really poor job at explaining how this works for complete novices. I run into issues all the time because I'm trying to install something or do some experiment, and I run into some port that I had no idea that existed, or how it works, or what it does. And if you're reading material online, it all assumes that you know what that port is, how it's named, and how it works. So that's an issue, but an issue that has transformed into a way of community building. Because in my channel, or in like any channel of people that do PC or tech stuff, if you go into Discord or forums or whatever, it's just filled with people asking questions about stuff that they don't understand, because that's literally how we build community.
Yeah. So what would you say is your longest, or like, what video had taken you the longest to do, and what what video has taken you the longest to make? There we go. Sorry, I couldn't word. Yeah.
That's a good question, because how exactly do you... Since I don't work on videos one at a time, it's hard to measure exactly how much time goes on each one. I will actually... Maybe that's because I'm working on it right now, but I will wager that is the virtual reality video. I have been trying to make that happen since like last year, but it was first a process of figuring out where I could get a headset, then a process of figuring out how to make the tech work, then a process to figure out how to change the games for it to work. So every little step has become a task that I do while doing other stuff, and end up taking months. But woof, that's a good question from the other ones. Maybe the Metal Gear Solid 5 video, the original one that I did, because that took a lot of experimentation, and I really liked that game, and I really wanted to make it happen, and I got stubborn. So I'm not even sure how I pulled that off. Once again, the thing that I do on that video, I don't think I have ever seen it anywhere else online. Nowadays there's a mod to remove the shadows, but usually the mod says like original credit by LowSpecGamer or something. So I'm almost sure that I was one of the first people to discover how to remove shadows in that game, and that took a lot of time and a lot of trial and error.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of experimentation sounds like basically what you do most of the time.
So you said that before when I asked the question of like you got to dig for it. You said you of course have the basic knowledge of like basically where you can probably find it.
Yeah.
Where did you get that original like basic information from? Like where did you learn from?
I think it was just by trying. Like before I started the channel, I already had a laptop that was having a lot of trouble playing the stuff that was coming out that year. And there's already an existing culture in PC gaming of looking at the configuration files and seeing what you can add. So it was a series of small incremental steps in the sense of I already know usually where the configuration file is, and I usually already know that there's stuff there that you can change, and in the number is big that you can reduce it and maybe something happens. And after doing it over and over and over and over again, you start seeing patterns. You sort of developed an intuition for it. So very often when I'm working on trying to work on a video for a specific game, I already have like a feeling, something that I cannot fully define, of what can possibly work, just because I have seen the same pattern a lot of times before. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, I sort of understand what you're talking about. For your VR video, are you going to be using a Windows mixed reality headset?
That is correct, because I managed to buy one I gotta check the price, but it was like $150.
Damn. That's
I've actually never heard of that. What is Windows mixed reality?
Windows mixed reality is a standard, I guess, that Windows created to put like VR capabilities inside Windows itself through a Windows something that is already in your Windows 10 operating system. It's already in your settings. You probably just have never noticed. And they wanted to make a version that was substantially cheaper than current VR solutions. And the technology that they use is, things like Oculus Rift and HTC Vive have external sensors that are used to triangulate the position of the headset and the two controllers in a 3D space. This doesn't have external sensors. This has accelerometers, gyroscopes, and a depth camera on the headset itself. So using the depth camera, the headset can know how the objects around you are moving, and using that together with the sensors, it can sort of calculate its position in a 3D space. And the controllers, which have a bunch of lights on them, are seen by the 3D camera, and therefore they can calculate the position of the controllers in relation to the headset. So that means that you get something that doesn't require the setup or external sensors of an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive, but has the disadvantage that can only track the controllers as long as they're in your line of sight. So if you put your controllers like behind your back and start moving, the game's not going to know that that's going to happen. But that's not, in my experience, that has not been a huge problem, because like 90% of the stuff that you do in games is within your line of sight. So you don't, I showed this to a ton of people during VidCon, and I didn't tell anyone that the controllers are not tracked outside your line of sight, and like only one person noticed. So it's not a really big issue. And when they were selling it, they were aiming to be cheaper, significantly cheaper than an Oculus Rift. And then right after they released Oculus Rift, dropped the price. So the difference between them wasn't enough to justify it. So it was a bit of a marketing fuck up. They still haven't quite fixed it. I think they're working on the second generation of them. But because of this, the first generation of the Windows mixed reality devices are like floating around Amazon for like $200. I bought a refurbished one for $150, and if you plug it into your PC, it's like recognized as something similar as an HTC Vive. Like SteamVR sees it as any other headset, so you can plug it in and basically for $200 play any game that you can play with an HTC Vive that is like $600.
Wow.
So, have you played on like an HTC or an Oculus before?
Yes, I have tried HTC a lot in fairs and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, because I had an HTC Vive. So which one would you say, in your opinion, is better?
oh, the HTC Vive is way more precise, and it has probably better well, I was going to say it probably has better resolution, but then I remember that I'm trying with like a 1050, so it's probably not the headset's fault. The HTC Vive is way more precise and way more responsive. That is clearly noticeable, but it's like like any comparison between a device that is $600 and a device that is $200. Like obviously the $200 device is going to give you part of the experience. It's not going to be as good, but it's like easier to get started with.
Okay.
I actually have a story. I actually have a story about an Oculus Rift. Oh god. So one of my friends at school had an Oculus Rift, and he brought it into school, and like we played it, and so that was super fun. But then I asked him if I could take it like to my house and like play it and like just borrow it for a little bit, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem," and because he was a really cool friend. But then I brought it home, and then everything went smoothly and everything, and I gave it back. But then I wanted it again, so I asked, and he gave it to me again, and I had it for about a week, and then it was in the middle of the winter, and I was my parents are divorced, and so I was transitioning from one house to the other, and I grabbed the Oculus and I put it in this like sort of tote bag thing, and as I'm walking out the door with my computer in my hands, I slip and I fall right on the bag with the Oculus Rift inside of it, and my computer case got super banged up too. But that wasn't what was the most important part. And then I didn't actually plug in the Oculus until a couple days later, and as soon as I plugged it in, I looked through, and the right eye was completely fine, but the left eye had like 100 dead pixels just like floating throughout the display, and I was like, oh my god. I called my friend, and he was like, oh yeah, don't worry about it, I can just get a warranty on it. I'm like, are you serious? You're not angry at me at all? He's not gonna let me borrow it anymore, but
that's for sure.
But yeah, so I
did it
broke
have
my
the
friend's
controllers?
Oculus Rift. Yeah, controllers and everything. It had 2 sensors as well.
Wow, yeah. That's an expensive device to break.
Yeah, luckily warranty fixed it for free, but still.
Wow, okay.
Was bad.
Still broke an Oculus Rift.
Yeah. Although I was playing Oculus Rift games pretty fine on my 750, and my 1050 it was completely fine.
Yeah, I have been surprised of how if you look online what you need to play VR, it's always like, oh, you need like a 1060, 1070 or something. I was very surprised when I plugged this thing on a 1050 Ti and it just worked without me having to do anything. Obviously, it depends by game. I'm going to, like, which games were you trying? Because stuff like Super Hot VR and even Skyrim are a little bit lighter, but then, like, Fallout 4 and Doom are insane.
Oh my god, I tried to play Fallout 4 VR on it, and oh my god, like, it was literally, like, 20 FPS, and that would be kind of playable, like, if it was on a, like, computer screen, but when you're in VR, it's, like, it's nauseating.
Useless, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most nauseating thing I've experienced with VR was riding on a horse in Skyrim. That is really nauseating.
It seems to be like a hit or miss thing. Like, a lot of people experience a lot of dizziness or just getting nauseous, and I know people that never experience any issues with VR. So I don't know, a lot of people, I have had some dizziness in conditions like that when you're riding a horse and things are moving really fast. It doesn't help that Skyrim wasn't a game designed for VR, so there's a lot of circumstances where you're moving really fast and doing stuff that clearly should not be done in VR.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest problem with dizziness and stuff is I feel like it doesn't, like when you're setting it for your eyes, I have to have them like the closest together that it can go, and I still feel like they aren't close enough.
Yeah, the technology is still, I will say, early. Like, there's a lot of calibration things that could be done that are not done. Hopefully newer versions of the technology will get better at that.
I just went on to Amazon, and an HTC Vive, a used one, is the same price as an Oculus Rift with touch.
New?
Yeah, a new Oculus
Yeah.
Rift with touch is the same price as a used HTC Vive. It's crazy.
Which is
Yeah, and so like, yeah, all of those ones do outside-in tracking, but with the inside-out tracking that the Windows Mixed Reality thing's doing, I've always wondered this: could you like bring it on a laptop and go outside and have like virtually infinite play space, or is there like there's probably some sort of limit?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a software limit, and also it's not wireless, so there's a point where the cable is going to be to its limits. Something that I have noticed is that when you create a boundary, it's mainly referential. You can, and I have walk way past the boundary, and it still keeps tracking because the device there's no external sensors. But I imagine if you get too far, it starts getting issues. I haven't tried it outside because I think because of the depth cameras that sunlight or just uneven lighting might not work very well in it. I don't know. This is a complete hypothesis. It might work perfectly, but
yeah. But maybe on like some sort of like overcast day would probably might work. I don't know. That might be something I'd be interested in testing if I were ever to get one.
Yeah, definitely.
I just can't wait until we're Ready Player One level of VR.
Oh yeah,
You
have you
know.
seen there was a omnidirectional treadmill that a VR company is making, and it's like exactly like the one in the movie.
Yeah, that looks insane. And also expensive.
Well,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
obviously, yeah. And we're not going to be getting any affordable options for a while. But personally, I don't really see VR going too far. Like, I don't think that we'll all be living in VR in like 20 years. Or even, I think it'll be a standard in industry, but I don't think it'll be like a big thing in gaming. I mean, it might be. I don't know.
Like, you don't think it's going to become a super norm?
I feel like in 50 years, it's gonna be like basically what a PlayStation is or an Xbox. I feel like it's gonna like get super advanced and be really good, because I feel like a lot of places are working on them.
Yeah, I just think that it's a little bit early in the sense of the maturity of the technology. The technology is good, but it's still too expensive. Once you get, which might take like 10 years, but once you get to a point where you can buy like a $300 like console or something, and it includes VR already in that price with everything that it needs, and it works well, then it might probably become the norm.
Yeah. So, I watched your 3-year anniversary special video, and you mentioned that near the beginning of your video, you actually got several copyright strikes. Why do you think that is? Yep. Or did you figure out what happened with that?
Well, I'm going to talk a little bit in general terms because I don't want to go too much into details. I'm going to explain in a moment why. Mm-hmm. But from what it looks like, it wasn't a proper copyright strike, but rather there's another YouTube user that this was when my Witcher 3 video started going viral, that didn't like that I was having success and decided to use the DCMA system to take down the video, which is illegal. It's like super illegal to use that like as a weapon rather than a tool for actual copyright. Obviously, I was very new to YouTube. I didn't know how any of this works, and I talked to this person, and this person denied any involvement and said that someone was pretending to be him to create these issues. Over the years, there's a lot of evidence that points to that not being the case, but I have specifically decided to ignore it and not put any more attention or thought into it, because honestly I'm here in YouTube to do videos on technology and experiment, not to do drama. I don't really care about that, so I decided to just let it go.
That's good. Yeah, so
I think that's
no need
a
to
quality.
do like lawsuits and stuff and drama and all that.
I think that's a quality a lot of people need.
Yeah, well, the problem is drama sells. I remember when I have told this story to some people in my audience, a lot of people, a surprisingly number of people, react with saying, hey, you should reopen that and you should talk more about that because that's easy views, which is probably true, but it's not a rabbit hole that I want to go down with. That's not the content that I came here to create. I don't care if it does well and helps the channel. It's not really my thing.
Yeah.
But I understand why other people do it because it's a huge source of views.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Luke, I may touch on earlier. Earlier, I did a thing and I accidentally unplugged my mic, not being smart, and so there's a little space where there's gonna be audio from everyone else, but like from here and like 20 minutes ago, my audio is going to be before everyone else's.
Okay. I'll just.
But during the period, there was no talking from me, so all you have to do is like, I can find that specific part, and then like kind of cut it out. I guess.
I'll be able to sync it all up. Last episode was really difficult because I recorded it from my dad's house again, and there was like, it was weird because like, I couldn't tell the difference between me syncing up the audio incorrectly and my network latency. So I had to basically just kind of hope that it was correct. When it comes to post work, do you do all of the behind the scenes, obviously like scripting and recording and stuff, but also the video editing?
I used to do, but that's a good question. Since when do I have an editor? I used to have a colleague that was helping me with the subtitles, and by absolute chance, I didn't know this. This person had a degree in like audiovisual design, so he knew how to edit videos, and he had already subtitled so many of my videos that he was super familiar with the structure and the format. So I decided to make a try. Like, I grabbed a video that I was working on at that moment, gave him the assets, and decided to see what he will come up with while I was editing my own version that I was going to publish. And the thing that he came up with was so much better than my version that I just threw away my version and used his. And since then, he has been the editor. He helps now recently a lot with the thumbnails as well. But the bulk of the work, which is the writing, researching, audio editing, narration, etc., is done by me. I am looking for more ways to delegate work, because something that I have realized after years of YouTube is that this thing is a grind, in the sense that even though I enjoy the topics that I do, the pressure of trying to get one piece of content a week it builds up, and like burnout is real. I used to not love but not take creators seriously when they were like, oh, I'm experiencing burnout, I want to take a small break because this is also difficult. I didn't used to take those creators seriously. Then I became a creator myself. Then I started doing this full-time as my job. And now I understand, and I'm definitely not laughing anymore. Like, and the only way that I see where you can actually avoid burning out is just to delegate more tasks, so you have more time to experiment with other things. But yeah, but that requires money and growing, so one thing at a time.
So, is YouTube like your full-time job?
Yeah, since a year and a half now. It happened a little bit gradually, in the sense that I was doing YouTube while also searching for other job opportunities. And at some point, I realized that I had stopped looking for other job opportunities and was just doing YouTube. So I just looked at the mirror and thought, I guess I'm a full-time YouTuber now. so yeah, now consciously I'm a full-time creator.
Okay.
All right.
At any point in time when you were doing YouTube, were you also working?
More or less. I was freelancing, looking at other things, but after I figured out some of the finer details of my strategy that actually helped me, funnily enough, getting to sort of economical viability for me wasn't a matter of just making more money, but rather a matter of minimizing the amount of money I was spending per video. And once I realized that and started making some wiser choices regarding my expenses, it just sort of happened. So I had already some savings during when I started this, and since the original feedback for the content was so good, my original plan was to give this a try while my savings lasted, and hopefully make it so when those savings were gone, I was already financially stable. That did not exactly happen. I did had to require some help from my family because I really wanted to make this happen. But I was close, like several months close of managing that.
Was there any difficulties convincing your family that this was a good career?
Originally, a little bit, but I think it's just a matter of how you explain it. Because if you approach your family being like, hey, I do videos online and I just magically make money, obviously they're just going to stare at you. But if you explain like, hey, this is the value proposition that I'm making, this is the target audience that I'm trying to reach, this is the possible avenues of revenue that I could generate. And my dad is an entrepreneur, so if I explain it to him more as an entrepreneurial project rather than just me screwing around online, he sort of got it better. And from there, it was less about lending me money to screw around, to like dick around on the internet, and more about making an investment to help me get my first project working economically.
Yeah, that's really cool.
How much support would you say you've needed from other people, and how much do you think that's helped you?
I needed a ton. Are we talking economical support, or are we talking all sorts of support?
All sorts of support.
Okay, well, definitely a lot. I was lucky to have both a good support group and the skills to explain to that support group things in the language that they could understand, rather than to say, as I said before, that I was just sticking around online. From the economical side, as I mentioned, my family did help me when I crossed that threshold where my savings were almost over, but this YouTube thing was like almost happening, like I was almost there. From the logistic support, it was a slow, gradual change. Like originally, a lot of, I wouldn't say my friends got it. My friends got it really quickly, but my family members, it took it a while to understand how they could help. My girlfriend definitely took some effort for it to, because she doesn't watch YouTube like in her personal time, so she didn't quite understand how the whole concept was. And my girlfriend's an academic, so she's very from a completely different world or way of doing things. But after we all managed to talk about it and be on the same line, it it did help a lot. I don't think I would have got this far without all the support that I have gotten, especially because YouTube, I had assumed that YouTube was going to be a sort of a linear path where you put effort and things become better, and you put more effort and things become more better, and eventually you get somewhere. And YouTube is more like a roller coaster. Like, there's really good moments and there's really bad moments, and the only way you climb out of the really bad moments is by looking at your stuff and understanding what is actually not working. Especially because you probably see it online that YouTubers complain about how the platform changes all the time. That the stuff that worked yesterday no longer works. That the strategies that used to get millions of views now no longer work. And there's a genuine complaint regarding that. Like every time I get someone that has an intent to having a YouTube career, the first thing that I always tell them is like, be aware that you are sort of entering an extremely unstable industry, in the sense that you're not going to put an amount of work and get a salary from it. You're going to have to be improvising like 24/7 because the platform is changing while you're working. But once I figured that out, thanks also to the support of the people around me, it became exponentially easier. So now every time like things start going wrong, I have like a procedure that I can follow to figure out what is no longer working and what can work, and that means much better stability. It's also, and I'm sorry if I'm extending a little bit myself, but I think this is interesting information to put out there. It's also important to have support from like mental health specialists. You see a lot of people with audiences complaining online about mental health. Like, my Twitter feed is almost entirely this. But there's a real reason for this, because having an audience screws around with your mental health like heavily, because you get like, if you have an audience of like 1,000 people and only 1% of them are dicks, like really bad people, those are still like 10 bad people. So those are 10 bad people that are going to follow you around and make your life hard. Now, if you have 100,000, you start seeing how this scales and kind of becomes a problem. The majority of people are really good at lying. I'm a very strong believer in that. But the numbers can get so... Like, have you seen 1,000 people in a room? Have you ever been in a room and been like, wow, there's 1,000 people here? That's a lot of people.
Not a room, but definitely maybe a stadium. But not even a stadium, probably, because that's a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, is there a stadium close to you?
Not close to me. No, I have to drive about an hour to get to a stadium big enough to hold probably 1,000 people.
Okay,
Yeah.
but what's the name of the first like stadium in your state or something that comes to mind? I'm just going to look up its capacity.
The Palace. The Palace in Detroit.
Palace. Let's see.
I wouldn't even been able to say that.
The Palace of Auburn Hills?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that has a capacity of around 22,000 people. So if you look at that stadium and you see when it's like packed, filled to the brim, you're like, wow, these are a lot of people. But if you have a channel about my size and you make a channel and you make a video and it gets 22,000 views, you're like, this isn't that good. I definitely screw something up. And that, it helps, you lose the frame of reference really quickly. And then when you reframe that, you realize that you are exposed to literally like hundreds of people that could be really mean to you. So mental health support, really, really important in this line of creativity.
Yeah.
We actually do have one stadium closer to us, and it's the Van Andel Arena,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I
that's
forgot
right.
about that.
and it seats like almost 11,000 people. So
Have you seen it full?
yes,
Oh,
That's-
yeah.
It's a lot of people, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous amount of people.
Personally,
Has 10,000 seats.
I would say having mental help, like a counselor and things like that, would be helpful for any person.
Yes, definitely.
Because I feel like people often think that there's a stopping point to developing yourself, and there really isn't. Because it's like, your art teacher will always tell you, your picture will never be perfect because there's always something that you can change to improve it. And I feel like a lot of people feel like that isn't a truth about yourself.
Yeah, I will say not only that, but there's an stigma about searching for mental health help, because you have this idea that when you go to like counseling or therapies because there's something really wrong with you, and I'm saying that as someone who was extremely resistive to going to therapy, and now having gone through it, I can't believe how stupid I was. I think everyone should give therapy a chance, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, mental health in general is underestimated.
And even just to talk to someone about things, because there's a lot of situations where I don't want to talk to people I know about things that are going on in my life, but then when you've got the confidentiality of a counselor, it's really nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, it's just nice to have someone who's like completely unbiased.
Yeah, or someone, the way that I saw it is having a professional that you're hopefully paying to, that is there literally to listen to you and to orient your own thoughts. So you can lay down on this person and literally tell them everything and things that you cannot tell someone else, because that's literally their job. Like, that's why they're there. And if they are actual good professionals, that information is never going to leave that room. So that is liberating in a sense.
Fun fact about me, I want to become a psychiatrist.
Good. That's really good.
Yeah. And it really, it sucks to hear about this, but a lot of psychiatrists, like people who tell me like their experiences with them, are often very bad. Because basically what a lot of psychiatrists do is they prescribe people medicine to help them.
Yeah.
And a lot of what I hear is basically somebody with a checklist, basically just checking off what they're saying and not really listening or caring at all.
To be honest, I don't know how much this is a generalization, but based on very incomplete anecdotal experience, it tends to look like me. Like most of the people that I have that are friends in the US, when they go to something like therapy, they seem to be prescribed medicines way more frequently than people that I know that go to therapy in Europe. Like, I was very surprised on how my personal experience with therapists in Spain were more like, okay, let's going to talk deeply about this and reach what's obviously it depends on the specialty of the therapist, because there's a lot of like types of therapy that can be done. But I was very surprised at how I have never even considered taking any sort of medicine for that, just a very deep exploration of the things happening. While a lot of my friends in the US are like, oh, I have anxiety, so these are the medicines that my psychiatrist told me. And if I have friends that suffer the same in Europe, they usually are not as heavily medicated. Once again, this is I'm working on super incomplete anecdotal evidence. But I'm always a little bit surprised on how easier it seems to be medicated in the US.
I personally feel like it's because a lot of psychiatrists, they basically go, let's do a hit and miss, and play around a bunch with what we think might work. And they tend to just go full on, let's experiment with the medicine. And I also feel like there's kind of an attitude of, well, if you don't take medicine, then there isn't a problem. And I feel like that's really bad because, I feel like there are people who have an imbalance or they need help with things that are going on in their life. And I think that some people need medicine and some people need talk therapy. And I feel like, either one is fine, and you shouldn't be like shamed for needing talk therapy, and you shouldn't feel like you need to have medicine to have a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of misconceptions, I guess, general misconceptions regarding mental health. Like that, like, if you're not taking medicine, then you don't have a problem, or, which is dumb in general. I think if everyone actually gave these things a chance, I will wager that the world will be much better.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for listening to the therapy podcast.
No, that was an interesting tangent.
That was actually an interesting tangent. That's good. It's good to touch on multiple things instead of just talking about one thing the entire time.
Computers.
Computers.
Yeah.
So you look at budget computers. Have you ever thought about looking into budget 3D printers?
No, because I don't think the technology is mature enough for that. I consider getting into 3D printing because of personal reasons, just because I wanted to play around with it. And I look around, and still even like the cheapest one that I could get, including the materials, including the setup, including all the effort, was still significantly over the budget that I had for that. So that's actually a pretty good question. Maybe there's a YouTube community in general. There's a YouTube vertical for 3D printing. I have never thought of that.
Yeah,
there might be entire YouTube channels. Yep, they are. Ooh, and it's not as small as I expected.
No, there's people like 3D Printing Nerd, Maker's Muse, I forget some other things, because I recently got really into it. I actually was able to borrow a 3D printer from my robotics team because I was tasked with figuring out how it worked and how to make it actually print things, because no one knew how it worked. And so I was able to play around with one for about a month, and I got really into it, and then when I had to give it back, I was like, oh man. So apparently there's a guy literally in my town, which is kind of rare because I live in a very small town, where someone's actually selling a 3D printer for like $150. So I'm like, this is perfect. I'm gonna get into this.
Well, I definitely thank you for the idea, because I'm looking through the numbers, and this is definitely way bigger in YouTube than I expected. And I don't think a low-spec printer or something, a channel dedicated to the more budget-friendly printers will be a bad idea. It will be interesting to see if it's an idea that produces enough content to sustain itself, because a lot of people that have ideas that they think are really good for YouTube channels are actually just ideas that they can make like 3 or 4 videos for. A good YouTube idea is something that you can make a video a week for like 5 years. That's a good YouTube idea. So I wonder if this is a good YouTube idea, and it might be, as I love experimenting around with this stuff, and that might just turn into content. So I thank you for that. This is definitely something I'm going to look more into.
Awesome. Yeah, just be careful, because there's some like the ANET A8 that literally catches fire, and people just realize that after recommending it like wholeheartedly for years, and then it caught on fire and burnt half a building down, and now it's a giant.
I will be sure to invest in a fire extinguisher then.
Yeah. Most important thing is don't leave your 3D printer at home without printing without supervision, and have a fire extinguisher next to it.
I'm gonna buy a babysitter to watch my 3D
one.
printer while I'm gone.
I mean, I'd totally do that. I'd watch a 3D printer do stuff, because it's interesting.
Or just unplug it.
Well, yeah, and you could also if you're gonna leave the house, there's usually in the firmware you can pause prints and then resume. But yeah, I'm just really, it's kind of hard to justify actually buying a 3D printer, because there's not really too much practical use for one, at least for me. But I think mostly I want to do it for making little figurines or anything that I 3D model, because I like to do 3D art stuff, and also just whatever random stuff that I want to do. I think I'm gonna do it more of a hobby, and doing like 3D printings, upgrades for the 3D printer, and upgrading it and messing around with
mean, one of the
technology.
advantages of any sort of creative hobby is sort of the side skills that you can develop from it. And it looks to me like a lot of the skills that you developed on 3D printing are stuff that you can use somewhere else, like 3D modeling or just basic electronics.
Like, I haven't even touched with CAD, because I do all of my stuff in Blender, but I'd be interested in learning some sort of CAD software.
I mean, the fact that you already know how to do something in Blender is already a huge advantage.
Oh yeah, I've been messing around with Blender for years. Starting with Minecraft animations that I tried to make. Oh god, that's horrible.
We all gotta start somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Minecraft is the reason why I got into making videos and other stuff, and why I got into animation and the internet in general, really.
I know a fair amount of people who got just into animation or programming. Actually, let me take that back. I know a fair amount of people who are now game developers that got into game developing because they were making mods for some game that they liked. And a lot of those are people that made Minecraft mods.
Dang.
I feel like most people had a Minecraft phase.
Well, yeah, especially in
at
our
least.
generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was a bit different though. Mine consisted of only Xbox 360 Minecraft. So
That's still Minecraft.
Yeah, Minecraft's Minecraft.
on an Xbox 360.
I am extremely scared to ask, but that comment about everyone in our generation and Minecraft sort of scared me. Like, how old are you?
Well, no, trust me.
Everyone
I'm
except
16.
for Ford is 16.
I'm actually 5.
Yeah. I'm the baby of the group though.
I may sound like I'm 12, but I'm 16.
Well, you all
gotta go.
whippersnappers. You all whippersnappers sound way more mature than your age tells.
I
I'm
know.
old.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Our age sucks.
Thank you.
I'm so
yeah.
old.
How old are you?
So, yeah.
28 in like 3 weeks.
Dang.
That's definitely out of college age, huh?
Happy
Luke?
early birthday. I didn't know. I just knew that he went to college. Did you go to college? I forget.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like 5 years ago.
Whatever. Shut up.
I asked Luke before the podcast how old you were, and he said, I don't know, out of college age. Thanks, it's real specific.
Well,
Technically
it's good to
speaking-
know that I sound younger.
Yeah, you do. Like, I was guessing early 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was
okay,
guessing
that's-
early mid.
Yeah, that's
I
what I
guess.
kind of thought too.
No, when Minecraft became a thing that exploded online and everyone was experimenting with it, I was a little bit too old already for it. I really loved what it created in gaming, because you guys are probably too young to remember this, but before Minecraft, like Minecraft pretty much caused a revolution in gaming, a creative revolution in gaming. Like, a lot of games started experimenting with more creative aspects, with more constructive aspects after the success of Minecraft. And that is something that I was really happy with, because I'm the sort of guy that gets really bored of games where you just shoot things. Mm-hmm. So that Minecraft, in that sense, Minecraft definitely made the sort of gaming vertical much better, much more interesting.
Yeah, and like, for example, like, a lot of good games like are like that, and probably wouldn't be around if it weren't for Minecraft, such as, I'm going to say, like, Rust.
Yeah, I will even say, I don't think Fortnite will exist without Minecraft.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of that idea of how Fortnite is different from something like PUBG is very much the classic approach at at action games, which is what military action games, which is what PUBG did, versus the most modern mixed creative side of games, which is what Epic did on Fortnite. So you can see the sort of two schools of thoughts regarding game in the same genre, and that is fascinating. And you can see which one's being more popular. So
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I think a lot of people prefer games that they can have a creative hand in as well.
Well, I just think it opens the doors to, because too many games are quote unquote action games, and as I said, it used to be way worse. And that, while there is definitely something exciting about action games, that's a very specific sort of feeling. Like, that's sort of closing the gates to a lot of possible experiences that gaming could provide. And something that has definitely become, I will say, better in the last 5 years maybe, is sort of the variety of genres that people are exploring regarding games in general. There's still, like, have you played The Sims? I don't know if this is a too old of a game for you, but have you played The Sims?
No,
Okay, cool.
not at all. I played The Sims 2. I played The Sims 1 on my PS2 when I was little.
So something interesting about The Sims is that during the old days of gaming, it was one of the very few games that have a majority female audience of people playing it, which was very weird on gaming at the time. And it brought a lot of people that were not traditionally interested in games and got them playing. But still, even today, there are a lot of people in gaming communities that will not consider that sort of thing as a quote-unquote real game. Like, there's a lot of places online where you will be like, I'm a gamer because I have spent 100 hours in The Sims, and people will be like, you're not really a gamer. By the way, this is a sort of attitude that I absolutely hate. But when you look at modern games that are doing stuff like that, definitely things have changed. Like, if you find someone who is like, I have a Nintendo Switch and I have 80 hours on Stardew Valley, no one's going to sort of deny that. No one's going to sort of see that as not being a quote-unquote gamer. So yeah, it has that sort of thing has opened the doors to a lot of people who don't just like blowing stuff up all the time, which is me, to be honest. Like, if I look at the stuff that I'm usually playing, a lot of that involves action, but a lot of time games like Skyrim or even The Witcher 3, I don't spend most of the time fighting. I just spend exploring the world and talking to people, exploring plots. So that's good.
Yeah, it's one of the best part of, like, open world games. It's not just about fighting. Like, there's a lot of little secrets and cool things you're able to find.
Yeah, there's a lot of side experiences that you could have, which is also what I wish I could see, sort of the audience distribution for something like Breath of the Wild versus more traditional Zelda games, because traditional Zelda games are a little bit more combat heavy, while I felt Breath of the Wild had way more space to fuck around and do things that are not strictly traditional Zelda gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
some
definitely.
of my favorite games are like tycoon games like City Skylines, Planet Coaster, and let's see, House Flipper. I actually really enjoyed that game. It's where you like renovate houses. And like Kerbal Space Program is a big one for me.
Kerbal Space Program, and also Euro Truck Simulator. I'm always amazed
Euro
at how
Truck
popular
Simulator.
that
Oh
thing
yeah,
is.
dude, I played so much Euro Truck Simulator. It was a problem at some point.
I don't really
but
play tycoon games.
I played an insane amount of them. And recently, the first $60 game that I bought in the past like 3 years was Jurassic World Evolution, because I was so excited about it.
Oh my god. That game.
I need to see some gameplay of it. I still haven't watched anything about it.
I watched
It's
When you talk
basically
about
Planet Coaster. It's Planet Coaster, but with dinosaurs. Like, what's not to love?
I liked naming all of them.
Yeah, naming the
right.
dinosaurs is the best part.
Yes. What time are we at?
We're at a little over an hour now.
Hour and 11 minutes, for me at least.
Yeah.
What?
I probably have quite a bit more.
Yeah.
I'm at an hour 09.
All right. Do you want to keep on going, or do you want to end it here?
I do should keep working. We can do a little bit more, but I'm sure I cannot do 1 hour more.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
Oh yeah, no. I think I'll probably we'll probably end it here.
Okay,
Alrighty.
cool.
So, as tradition, Jayden has to say something mildly offensive.
Yes, offend us, Jayden.
Your mom have very large gargantuan gay.
There we
Okay,
go.
There we go. All right, and thank you for listening.
Significantly offended.
Exactly.
You can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/LukeNotLucas and youtube.com/CreeperGamingRS if you really want to. You can also find me on Twitter at its_LukeNotLucas. You plug your stuff forward.
My YouTube will be in the description. That's about it. I don't want to say it.
Jayden?
I don't have anything to plug. I'm not social.
And Trinity.
No.
And then finally,
Don't.
Alright.
LowSpecGamer.
Don't. You can find me here.
And finally, Alex.
Just go for YouTube and search LowSpecGamer, first result. Go for Twitter and search LowSpecGamer.